So, you hear life without secrets. There's going to be some people that are like, oh, give me the gossip. That's not what it's about at all. It's not about, going and telling your dirty little secrets to, the internet or the world or whatever. Life without secrets is being truly authentic and figuring out who we are. And the the reason why I called it that is, figuring out who we are is a process.
What is up, everybody? Happy Saturday. You'll be listening to this on Monday, hopefully. This is our Memorial Day edition. And no, I don't have a veteran, but I have someone special to me, someone who's a very close friend and has supported me through my hiatus, through the ups and downs. And she's just been there for me. And I truly love this person. She is a former teen mom that defied all the odds and became a valedictorian. She's a certified renowned emergency and trauma nurse. There's so many things this woman is, but the things that come to mind that really signify her is she's a lovely wife, a great mom, and a great friend. Jillian Riddell, welcome to the show.
Oh, Sean, that was so sweet. Thank you so much for having me on here today on such a awesome weekend. And yes, thank you to all those veterans out there as well.
Yes, those
Yes.
that sacrifice the ultimate
Hmm.
sacrifice, which is their life. Never forget it. It's funny. I was scrolling through Instagram this morning and I saw this fitness influencer, walking on the treadmill, talking about it's just another day. Plan your meals, don't eat too much, follow your macros, and it's funny because like I know what she was saying,
Mm.
but like, is there a better phrase than it's just another day? Like,
Yeah.
while she's saying that, follow your macros so you can look better naked, but yet someone's kneeling at a grave crying because they lost their parent. Like, to me, it's it's a little tone deaf, but hey,
Yeah.
I don't know. Just, we started off the show talking about that, and it's just kind of, you know, it kind of got me to go and rewind a little bit into what I saw today. And for those of you listening and watching, like, this is more than just a day. This is
Hmm.
a day to respect the fallen, to understand what true freedom means and what it costs. So,
Amen.
off
Amen
my
to that.
soapbox,
I
off my
no, I
soapbox right
I
there.
love that. No, it's so important. I think it's so important to take a moment to recognize that. And so I'm really glad
Yeah.
you brought that up.
Absolutely, and thank you for coming on short notice. I texted her. I don't know what it was, probably like Tuesday or Wednesday last week. I'm in Pennsylvania, and I'm like, Jill, yo, I need to record a show. I don't have anything for next week. Like, can we just do this? And so, thank you. We've both been trying to get on the schedule for this show for quite some time. Um,
Hmm.
and full disclosure to the audience, this woman would have been on my show months and months ago, but I think I had to cancel for some reason, and then we just haven't been able to get, you know,
It's been busy.
yeah.
It has been a busy world, and I think we've had so many conversations over the phone
Hmm.
through the last like 6 months, and you were on my show,
Hmm.
and just building each other up and being there for each other. Life is not always easy. It's not always rainbows and butterflies and, the highlight reel that we see on Instagram. Life
Yeah.
sometimes has struggles. And I think we all need people in our lives, more so than a podcast, that we can call and just be like, hey, I got this. What do you think?
Hmm.
And just be there and be honest. And I think the world needs more of that. So I'm happy to have you, on my team and be on your team in this whole journey.
Absolutely. Like, I can't think of very many people that are in my corner as deep as you are. So I appreciate it, and it's received, and just know that I'm in your corner just as deep. I'm swinging with you. And, it's one of those things where I was just thinking about when you were talking, you're talking about behind the scenes kind of, behind the camera lens of Instagram. And it was just so much more. We're living life without secrets here, right? That's
Yep.
your brand. That is your podcast, right? It's
Yeah.
an amazing top 3 global podcast. By the way, guys, just kind of throwing some love her way. She's worked her butt off, and after 60 episodes, she's already top 3%. So this her show and Jillian are definitely going places. But let's talk about that because
Yeah.
you've been very outspoken about what you and your husband Mike have gone through in the
Mhm.
past, and it's something that I don't feel enough people are willing to get out there and talk about. So for those that listening that don't know your story and what I'm referring to right now, why don't you give them a little synopsis?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to. So, you hear life without secrets. There's going to be some people that are like, oh, give me the gossip. That's not what it's about at all. It's not about, going and telling your dirty little secrets to, the internet or the world or whatever. Life without secrets is being truly authentic and figuring out who we are. And the the reason why I called it that is, figuring out who we are is a process. And I think that we change over time. And I think we're supposed to change over time.
Mhm.
And we're not supposed to remain the same. We're supposed to grow. We're supposed to get better. But in order to grow and get better, we have to dive deeper into the stuff that we've been through. And we can't just put that under the rug. And so my husband and I, we met and we just fell in love right away. It was like fairy tale. We actually met in Vegas, and if my husband was here, his one liner would be, um, "Yeah, whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, except for my wife." And and my line is always, "And it's not like that." But we met there, and he was a police officer at the time, and I was an EMT going to nursing school. Just like you said, I was a teen mom.
Mhm.
Um, Partly the reason why it's called Life Without Secrets as well, and my brand is that I actually was a secret. So I was a product of an affair. My dad had met my mom at a bar, and my mom didn't know he was married. And she got pregnant with me. And then my dad's like, oops, sorry, I'm married. And I knew about my dad when I was born, and I knew that he had this other family. But I didn't know they didn't know about me. And so my dad hid me from his family
Hey, Jillian,
until,
can I interrupt you 1 second? We had some technical difficulties, so
oh,
we had
okay.
a little bit of a cut. So the last thing we heard, and again, for those of you who are watching and listening,
Uh-oh, what
Life Without
happened?
Secrets and the Determined Society is about being authentic. So we're not gonna, act like it didn't happen. We're gonna roll through it here. But Jillian, the last thing we heard was, your dad said, "Oops, like sorry, I'm married,"
Yeah.
and then pick us up from there, please.
Yeah. So my dad's like, oops, sorry, I'm married. And so my mom has me, and I see him like once a year. So he's a truck driver. He delivered special automotive vehicles, did commercial shoots for Toyota and hauled the cars and stuff like that. And he didn't tell his family about me, that I existed. And so I got to see him like once a year when he would drive through like the San Francisco Bay Area where I was raised. Um, and by the time I was 11, I didn't know I was a secret. And so I
Mm,
knew I had all these brothers and sisters, and they lived in Arizona and blah, blah, blah. And I started becoming very angry at like 11 years old. And so my mom took me to counseling, and they were like, she doesn't know she's a secret. And so my mom had to tell me that these people didn't know anything about me. And those were, 11 is a tender age where all these emotions and things start coming up, anyways. And so I started really questioning my worth and feeling like, do I really matter? You know, like, am I even important? And so naturally, when I got into teenage years, I started looking for love in all the wrong places. I ended up getting pregnant at 17 in high school. I was a senior in high school. And I had a teacher that was like, "Oh, you had so much potential." And I was like, "Oh, wow, like that really stung." But I was like, "You know what? I have a choice. I can be that statistic that teacher thought I would be, or I can prove to myself and everybody else that I can do this, that I can be successful, and that we can overcome obstacles. And I'm going to teach my son that too." And so I put all of these emotions into my achievements. And so I meet my husband when I'm 21. I have a 3-year-old at the time. And I have this emotional baggage that I've carried from my childhood. And now my husband has his own emotional baggage, right? I call these our grief cases. And we show up, and his mom had left when he was 5, and he had was raised in kind of a blended family. He left when he was like 17 from his family, became a police officer. So he's doing the same thing. So we really like bond over our traumas in our childhood, right? And so we feel like, oh my gosh, this person understands me. Like this is going to be great. And so, 3 years into our relationship, the pressure starts coming. I feel like, after 2 years in any relationship, there's like this untalked about pressure,
Mhm.
right?
For sure.
I mean, even in business, like we can relate this to business as well, right? Like when you're on this path and let's say like everybody expects you to be at a certain level in business by a certain point. It's the same thing in relationships, right? Society will pressure you, at this 2-year mark or wherever this mark is to be at a certain place in your relationship or in your business. And all this pressure starts coming on. And that created a little resistance for Mike because just like I had had a baby at a young age, he actually was married at a young age and got a divorce from his high school
Mm.
sweetheart. So he carried a lot of fear there as well. So he ends up like going to some bar, kissing some girl, ends up being like a friend of a friend. I'm devastated. And we break up, and 6 months later, I didn't talk to him at all. I have a very, like, avoidant attachment style,
Mm.
just from, growing up and, like, not ever being able to hash out those feelings, from my childhood, so I would just avoid anytime there's a, conflict, that was my go-to, is just to avoid that whole situation, and so I didn't speak to him for, like, 6 months, and we get back together 6 months later, just to give you a short version, we get engaged. We go to Stagecoach. Have you ever been to Stagecoach? Do you know Stagecoach?
No, I don't. What is it?
Oh my gosh. Okay. You like country music, am I right or am I wrong?
Oh,
Yeah.
big time.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
So it's like one of the biggest music festivals for country music, and we used to go every year. It's a blast, super fun. But we go, and my husband used to drink, and he wasn't like a regular drinker every day. He was more like, I worked 28 out of 30 days this month, and I'm going to go binge drink and escape my reality kind of drinker.
Yeah.
And so we go to Stagecoach. He drinks, and we're engaged at this point. He drinks a ton and ends up coming back to our group of friends, and he's got lipstick on his face. And I look at him and I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I had like a red color lipstick on today.
Mhm.
Like, how did you get that? And I took a picture of myself and I took a picture of him, and I'm like, yep, definitely not mine. And so I
Mm.
call off the wedding, and I, at this point, just am more devastated because I also have a son. And for anybody out there that, has a son and dating, they're going to understand me on this. It's a talking about pressure. There's a lot of pressure, and it's a way bigger deal when you're like dating with a child, right? Because, you're not just inviting them into your life, you're inviting them into your child's life, which is
Mhm.
a huge deal. So call it off, get back together again. We get married, right? We still haven't unpacked these grief cases, by the way. So now our 40-pound bags, like if you were to show up at the airport, are like 70 pounds. And we're just trucking along. And I'm just like really wanting this family that I never had, because I never had a dad in my life ever. My mom never dated. And so all I craved was this family. We get married, and the struggles continued, and Mike went from being a police officer to going into mortgage banking. And I'm just going to say this, being a wife of an entrepreneur is really difficult. And in the beginning, we struggled so much, and I built this resentment, right? And he'd be like, oh, I'm just trying to help people. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, if you want to help people, you need to come home and love your family. Like, and he was working these 16 hours days, and this resentment really grew. And at this point, our bags are like just bursting at the seams. They're just,
Mhm.
we're carrying around these grief cases. We're trying so hard to make this work, and it's not going well. I end up moving back to Northern California when I'm from, because we were living in Southern California to be closer to my family and to have more support there.
Mhm.
And I literally told him, I don't care if you come or if you stay, but this is what I'm doing. Like, I was at my breaking point.
Yeah.
So we come up here, he changes like who he works with. And he kind of starts his own thing. And um that was a little bit better. We started getting a little better. And then I went back to work full time. And at that point, I start getting like male attention. And, somebody's paying attention to me, right? And like from my childhood, that's all I ever craved, right? Was like someone to see me, because I felt like I didn't matter. I wasn't important. I wasn't worthy of that love and attention from even my own family. So I'm always like looking for this love and attention. And, I so it I end up talking with this guy at work, and it becomes this like emotional roller coaster.
Mhm.
And, you know, it goes on for a little while, and finally Mike finds out, and those bags, those grief cases, they fell all over the floor.
Mhm.
And usually, that's when people part their ways, right? And they make one person goes one way, one person goes the other way. But guess what? They're still carrying those really big bags, and they're really messy, right? And so, in order to heal, in order to live a life where can be yourself, that you can be authentic, that you can be true to who you are, that you can grow, you have to start unpacking those bags from your childhood. You have to start unpacking them. And we made the choice, the really hard choice, I will say, to unpack those bags together. And we spent a mortgage payment on trauma therapy. From we had our own trauma therapist. He had his, I had mine, and we had a Christian family therapist, and then we had a trauma therapist for our marriage.
Mm.
Okay. Like, this was not easy. We had both made mistakes in our relationship we weren't proud of. We started off on this very cracked foundation. And it's okay to start over in your own relationship. And that's what I want a lot of people to know as well, is like, you can start a new relationship in the one you're in. And that's really what we did. I was like, I don't want this that we have. Like, I want a new one. Like, I don't want to go back and be that. Like, I want something that we're going to build a foundation on. It's more solid. And so we start going to therapy, and we were scared at first, and we took everything off the table. We took sex off the table. We took everything off the table, and we literally started dating. And some of the things that we forget when we're in a relationship is we forget to continue to do new things with that person. We end up in like a rhythm, right? And it gets kind of complacent, and basically we start like escaping in our jobs, or in our kids. We put our energy there, and we forget to foster this relationship with our spouse. And so we started dating again, and we hired a babysitter, and we go out like every Monday or Friday, and we started doing new things that we've never done together, or that we hadn't done in like 10 years. And that have really helped start, building on our relationship. And then as we got better at this, instead of focusing on like, oh, our relationship had to be perfect, we instead focused on like, how can we praise our progress? Because no relationship is ever going to be perfect. You're always going to have struggles, always. They're never going to go away. It's not like we're going to get over this hump and then everything's going to be blissful. No, that doesn't exist. There's no such thing as perfect. And, the reason why we come out here and we talk about like, yeah, this is what we've been through, and this is like in our own lives and in our marriage, is because not enough people talk about the real stuff that they go through. Like, we all go on there, and we're all guilty of it. Like, we go on there and we talk about like our perfect kids and our perfect relationship and our awesome vacations, but really, like, behind the screen of Instagram or social media, like, people are struggling.
Yeah.
And, I think more so today than ever, because COVID, for instance, right? Like, we had this is a new thing for everybody in the world. Like, nobody's been through this kind of thing before. And I think before COVID, we were already starting to isolate ourselves in our marriages, in our worlds. You know, m- Nowadays most families are spread out. Like, when you think about, like, your extended family, like your brothers or your sisters, like, it's no longer you live in the same town, like, you're more spread out. And yes, you can create a community. And I suggest everybody can create that community in their neighborhood, in the town they live in, if you don't have family, because I think it's such an important piece for us to start getting vulnerable and start sharing our real struggles so that we can know we're not alone in what we're going through. And that will help you really grow as a person and start making those changes and know that, like, hey, if they can make it in their relationship after going what they went through, so can we.
Yeah, no, wow, first of all, thank you. Like,
That was a long
ladies ladies
version
and
there.
gentlemen, I thought that I could talk. My friend here just laid it all out there for you, and quite honestly, in that 15 minutes, like, I know people can learn so much
Yeah.
just about your resolve, not just yours, but also Michael's. I wanna touch on something really quickly, and
Yeah.
then we'll leap forward again to where we're at right now in present time is
Mhm.
that, early on, the things that are happening in your life, being a secret,
Mhm.
having, being a secret to your siblings, your father's whole life,
Yeah.
right? And then going into the early struggles with Michael really plays on your self-worth. Like, am
Oh,
I
big
am
time.
I good enough? And then it gets
Mhm.
to a point where you're pushed and you're pushed and you're pushed, and you get to NorCal, and you're sitting there at work, and then
Mhm.
this dude starts paying you attention, and you already feel like, well, I'm not good enough for my dad. I'm not good
Yep.
enough for my husband,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
And now, I've got this gentleman showing me, this attention. Maybe
Mhm.
I'm good enough for him. Let's
Yep.
see where this goes. How did it feel for you being on the other side of that equation and having to atone for that? Was there that fight, like, well, to hell with you, man, like, I've been dealing with this for how long, like, now you know how it feels? Or did you feel a sense of, like, shit, what did I do?
Both. I had a lot of resentment, but when
Mhm.
you start doing that, you develop a lot of shame. And when we are carrying shame and guilt and those feelings of I don't matter or I'm not worthy, we're not able to show up for the world or for ourselves and be who we truly are.
Mm.
Because the Jillian I know would have never been in that situation. I know that was not who I am at heart. It
Mhm.
was it was the baggage and the that I was carrying with me that I put myself in that position instead of handling the deeper issues.
Absolutely. And the thing that I enjoyed most about you and Michael is you guys have been very, very upfront about the journey of your marriage.
Mhm.
And you put it out there very early. And now you guys are able to live without the secrets. You're able
Yep.
to be out there and truly influence individuals to be their authentic selves because you're not holding anything back anymore.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, whereas,
Mhm.
I have a ton of secrets.
Mhm.
Everybody knows about my father leaving me when I was 2 and having a stepfather that raised me who I love, but it was, as I get older, I realized I have issues with men
Mm.
because there was a high level of narcissism,
Mm.
right? And so for me, I feel like I have to always please men. Like, I have to make a man proud of me
Mm.
when in all and it's a prison. Like, quite
Mhm.
honestly, I need to go into some type of trauma therapy for it, and I
Mm.
and I will, right?
Yeah.
Because it is holding me back,
Yep.
right? It's holding me back in my life and in my career and in my relationship,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, so I just want to commend you and commend your husband for going through and doing that work because it's scary.
Mhm. Yep.
I mean, I would imagine it was a pretty contentious room a lot of times.
Oh, oh my goodness. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like, and I say this now, and I will just say this. It took us a good 6 months to really hash stuff out, going every week to trauma therapy and all that. And it's taken us like probably over a year to get to a point where, like, we're okay. And we can talk about, like, he'll be like, hey, you know what? I don't know why this is coming up, but I'm
Mhm.
feeling triggered right now. Same thing with me. I don't know why this is coming up. And we'll just talk through it. Or sometimes, when there's, heated conversations about something or we get into an argument, he understands me now too. Like, hey, I'm feeling triggered. And for me, I need that time. So I'm like, I need to take 20 minutes and then we can come back and have this conversation.
Mm.
And it's being able to understand the other person and what their needs are and figuring out something that works for both of you.
So you're saying when he comes to you and says, "Hey, this is coming up. I'm feeling triggered. I don't know why." You like to take 20 minutes to get your thoughts and then circle back, or is it when you are feeling triggered, you need the 20 minutes?
Either way, I think
Yeah,
either way,
yeah.
it's I want to hear you, but I want to be ready to hear you, and I
Mm.
want to be able to respond and not react. And
That's
so
that's
it
hard.
it is hard, especially, with in the you develop this comfort level in your marriage, right? Where, like, that's the person you take out the most on,
Yeah.
whether that's when you're coming home from work or whether you're, having a stressful day with your kids. We take so much out on that person that's the closest to us.
I think it's a fact. I think everybody that is married, everybody's been in a long-term relationship can relate to that. It's
Mhm.
never the intention, right?
Yep.
It's just you are no matter how bad things are going. And my
Mhm.
wife go through it. We have gone through it. No matter how bad you're feeling about your relationship, whether you're in sync or completely one person's in left field, the other person's in another fucking stadium,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
You're the most comfortable.
Mhm.
You could be the biggest asshole, like, to that person because you're comfortable being that way,
Yep.
because they're there. And you
And I
know
will
what?
s yeah.
And
Mm,
they may not be
yeah.
if you keep doing it, right?
And I will say too, and I think this is something very important to remember, that it takes two, right? So, like, let's say, the only way that would have worked in either of those situations, whether it was my mistake or his mistake that we've gone through, um, if either of us was not willing to do the work, we wouldn't have had the result we've had.
Right.
You really have to have two people that are working on it. But this is what I will say. If you are the one person that is willing to work on it, know that at the end of the day, you will have done the work on yourself. And that is really what matters. Like, you need to do that for you, not for the other person, because that's not how it works. You have to show up for you and be willing to learn more about yourself and really dive deeper into all of those things in your life so that you can move forward, because now I feel like we're just on this growth path in individually, and because we've done the work together as well.
Mhm.
But in order to really grow and then expand on that and not repeat this cycle or pattern that you're in, you have to be willing to dive deeper on this stuff. And especially in this culture, it's hard to take that time out, right? It's so hard. And
Yeah.
it's the most important thing I can tell people to do.
I think the biggest problem is, not I won't say problem, but the hardest thing is to take the time,
Mhm.
right, to digest the information and then come
Mm.
back in a
Yep.
constructive manner. The other thing is I think people are just genuinely wired to want to win an argument. They want to win at, you know, they want to win at the Nintendo game. They want to probably dating ourselves here, like
Right.
Nintendo. Like, who plays Nintendo? I do. Okay, I played Tecmo Bowl last week. All right, but the thing is like everybody wants to win.
Mhm.
And what I want individuals, and I want you to speak on this because
Yeah.
the struggles that you guys have gone through,
Mhm.
uh, I think you can really speak to this one. If you win a fight, somebody else loses. And if somebody else loses, somebody's walking away feeling like shit. How does that help your relationship?
It doesn't. I
Yeah.
I think that you have to have a team mindset. So this is an example, actually. So, this is just like a month ago, maybe. We got into an argument about how, we're both very busy in our lives, right? Like we have children, we both are go-getters in life.
Mhm.
He runs all these teams, and I'm an ER nurse, but I also run my podcast and trying to do speaking and do these events and things. And so we are like super busy. And if we don't put like date night on our calendar, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so we hadn't put it on the calendar, and we were getting kind of like, oh, like, I want to spend time with you. Like, you're not making time for me. You didn't do this, and we kind of got into this bash. And then all of a sudden I stop and I'm like, hold on, let's just take a second, because we are literally arguing because we want to spend time with each other.
Yeah.
Like, that's a blessing. Like, we
Yeah.
want to spend that time together. And we just took a minute to be grateful for that, because there were times where, like, I wanted to run so far away from here because of the resentment I carried. And so now we're at a place where we're like, we're upset because we didn't make that time for each other. I'm like, let's just sit here and know that this is a win. And we got to have a totally different conversation that was so much more productive, because we took that second to go, you know what? Let's be grateful and praise the progress here.
Yeah.
Like, we can be grateful to be arguing about wanting to spend time together.
Well, that's when you look at that, you're like, wait a second. We want the same thing here. We're on the same side. We're
Mhm.
arguing the same thing, but
Yes.
we're wanting to place blame on the other person for it not making it
Mhm.
happen. That's
Yeah.
your old shit coming up,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
That
Yep.
is just that is just being human. The thing that I really love about this, and where I want the audience to really listen is we're able to stop, praise the progress,
Mhm.
and just understand that there's true beauty in this moment where you guys are arguing about the fact that you want to spend more time with each other.
Mhm.
No one's
Yeah.
running from he's not running away wanting to go to the bar. You're not running away wanting to go on a girl's trip. You want that uninterrupted time with your spouse, and he does
Yep.
too. There's a
Yep.
lot of power in that.
Yeah. And the other thing that I want to suggest as well is, we're talking, a lot of culture now is about talking about our feelings, right? Which I
Mhm.
am all about, like, diving deeper into your feelings. But I think, number one, it's important to spend some time alone on your own and really think about those feelings that are coming up, and are they truthful?
Mm.
Like, how do I feel? What makes me feel this way? Have I ever felt this way before in my past? Is it related to what I'm feeling now? And I think, like, asking those questions to ourselves is super important when we're thinking about the way that we're feeling, and spending that time alone to really dive deeper into those feelings. And then when we approach our feeling to our spouse, we need to follow it with a need, because, when we are presented feelings, a lot of times the person that is responding to that isn't sure what you're looking for.
Mhm.
And, like, am I supposed to be supportive? And especially a man, right? Like, a lot of times men want to fix things. And so they start talking about something else. And then the woman's like, I didn't even feel heard,
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
for sure.
sometimes I'll say, hey, I am feeling frustrated. And what I really need is for you
Mhm.
to just sit on the couch and hear me out. That's
Yeah.
all. That's all I want you to do. And then he's like, "Okay, I can do that." And he will, like, intently and genuinely listen to me, and that's all I really needed. So if we can dive deeper into why we're feeling that way, and then in that moment figure out, what do I really need? Like, what would make this better? And be able to present that to our spouse or whoever that is in any relationship, um in that manner, with a feeling met with a need, there will be a lot less unmet expectations.
I completely agree with that, and I think in the heat of the moment, understanding why you're getting triggered or why you're pissed. Because for
Mhm.
me, and I spoke about this recently, on a podcast with my buddy Brian, and it was about putting the dishes my wife
Yeah.
said something about the dishwasher. I'm like, "Dude, seriously?" And it started playing on this old program, like, "What the fuck? Like, I did it. Like, is this not good enough?" Like, "What do you mean I'm not good enough?" I'm like, "Wow. Like,
Mm.
this is not even about
Yeah.
what she's saying." If I really dissect what she's saying, it was now, I love my wife, okay, but, and I'll say this, English as a second language here, Okay. She could yell at me in Spanish. And I'm like, talk dirty, baby. Let's
Oh my
go. This
gosh.
is great. The moment she says something to me in English, I'm like, can you throw in a fucking filler fluff word, please? Because I feel like I'm being parented right now. And that's really not about her. That's my
Yeah.
bullshit. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
like we get into these arguments and I talk about that. I'm like, we're really, you know, in that moment, I'm like, is this really about the dishwasher? Is what she's
Mhm.
saying true?
Mhm.
And I did it after I gave her a shitty look, and did it after I probably went, or whatever. Really, I had the plate in there crooked. If something shifted, it would have busted. So she was truthful. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, it's loaded. Like what? I mean, come on. Like what more do you want from me? But the reality is, it was never about her. And I would venture to say that most of
Mhm.
our arguments with our friends and our spouses, or just even a boyfriend or girlfriend,
Yep.
is about something much deeper than what is going on in the present moment. So you have to ask yourself, is this real?
Mhm. Is it real?
It's hard.
Yeah. Yep.
It's hard. It takes
Yep.
a lot of effort, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And to your point, the only way that's done is if you do spend time by yourself and understand where this shit is coming from. Grief case,
Yep.
trash from your past, like my boy Brian Bogert says, like all of it is the same idea, but I call it my bullshit.
Mhm.
I call it my
Mhm.
bullshit. It's my shit. Like
Yep.
it's just the way it is, right?
Yeah.
And you have to understand where it's coming from because if we don't, we can't heal from the past. All
Yep.
right. And I am the classic. I am too busy to slow down. If I slow down and take time for myself, then I'm not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z, which is usually go work out, just kind of veg out by myself or, play with my kids or whatnot. But the reality is, if I don't do all these things, I'm not going to be present while I'm there doing them. So it might as
Mhm.
well be me not even being there at all if I'm not
Yep.
present,
Yep.
right? Imagine what this interview would be like if I wasn't present or
Yeah.
you weren't present.
Wouldn't be existing.
No, it would suck. It'd be the worst
Yeah.
show ever. It'd be like one of my very first shows I ever did when I was talking to myself on my iPhone. Literally, did you know that story?
I did not know
We're
that
getting we're getting
story.
into tangents, and this is where the audience starts
I love
laughing.
this.
Like, oh shit, Sean didn't take his meds this morning. It's like
Ah!
I was literally my first podcast was in this room, and I grabbed my phone. And I'm talking into the Anchor app. That was my show.
That's great.
And then the next one, I could never get it quiet around here because it was during COVID. So I had a VW Atlas at the time as an SUV. That was my first podcast studio.
That's awesome.
And no one knew it at the time. They're like, oh, what are you recording? It sounds freaking amazing. The acoustics are incredible. Like, I'm in a fucking car, man. It's like, this sucks. So it's a
Yeah.
perspective, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't see. And I always like to bring that up at times because we get the excuse like, well, I don't have a microphone and I don't have what you have. You have this nice studio. Like, dude, I have a room with a fucking sign and
I
a
know. I
microphone.
love pointing out people will compliment me on my like background all the time.
Mhm.
Like, is that real? And I'm like, actually, it was $20 backdrop on Amazon. And I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. When you came out with it, I'm like, damn, that's great. Because when we did our show, like you didn't have on your show, you didn't have the background, so there's no
No,
video.
no, we didn't. We did
Yeah.
not. We were starting out. And yeah, thank you for that.
I know. I'm glad to be one of the OGs.
Right? You
It's
are.
like one of the original guests.
You
Everybody
are.
thought I would say gangsters.
Right?
No, but I think your story is very it's very relatable.
Yeah.
Because I mean, your brand to me, I know life without secrets, whatever, but your brand to me is simply this. Give me a bad scenario, give me some actual shit
Mhm.
and something that's going to debilitate me, and I'm going to find a way to overcome and win. That's
Yeah.
what you've done in your marriage. That's what did as a valedictorian,
Yeah.
former teen mom. That's what you've done as a trauma nurse, and like
Mhm.
all these things are related. So like I think that's something innate in you. So how I want you to explain to the audience or maybe give audience some clues or some strategies to extract what their greatness is because
Yeah.
that's
I
yours.
mean, so it's funny because, I think is also part of my personality. Um, and that was obviously it's kind of an achievement mindset, like I needed to achieve to prove to myself
Mhm.
and to others. But I will say that there's always going to be people that doubt you in life. Always. People are going to want to tell you the way it's supposed to look or the way you should do something. And for me, it was taking that step every day. Like when
Mhm.
I started college at 9 months pregnant. I was 18 years old. I started college at 9 months pregnant, and people were like, "You're not going to take some time off?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not.
Hmm.
I'm going to keep going." And too many people quit or listen to other people, and if you have a goal, every day you stick to something. And it started off with like, I'm going to start college at 9 months pregnant to I had my son on a Monday and I was back to college the next Monday. And I took as many classes as I could online so that I didn't have to be away. But then it was, okay, I can ace this test. Okay. And then I can ace another one. And then I can ace a class. Right. And then it was like, well, then I can ace a semester and ace this year. And I worked my butt off. And there was times where I did not sleep at night, that I cried buckets of tears
Mhm.
because it was so hard. Um, and I'll tell you what, I knew I was not going to be a statistic. I knew that I was going to show my son that we can do hard things.
Mm.
And when like, people talk about like your why and all that stuff, and it's like, it sounds really like, oh, your why, but when you really dive deep into that, it was like, I knew what it was like to not have much because my mom was a single mom. She cleaned for a living. And she always told us, like, never rely on anybody. Like, you always have to support yourself. And, I think I was empowered by that too.
Mm.
Because I saw my mom struggle, and I wanted to create an environment where I could work really hard, I could make, decent money, and I could be there with my kid. And not having a parent to be there with me, I wanted to make sure, and even in this journey that I'm on right now, like, run your own race. Like, that is like one of the key things I would love people to know, that you don't have to do what people tell you to do. You don't have to It doesn't have to look a certain way. You don't have It took me 5.5 years to get my bachelor's in science and nursing, where some
Mhm.
people, maybe it took 4. But maybe it took me a little longer to get there, but I worked my butt off, and things were thrown at me constantly, obstacles. I mean, Play-Doh in my hair, on the walls, like, you name it, like, it was not pretty. But I put in the work every single day to get there. And what it taught me is like, when I go on any new adventure, I like it to be a little challenging, but I also know that there's going to be people that are coming at me telling me, "Oh, you're not going to be able to do that," or, "Oh, you just don't want it bad enough." Like, no, you don't know me as a
Mhm.
person. Like, in the trauma room, for instance, like, I am not going to step into that trauma room feeling unprepared, right? Like, preparation is key. And,
Yeah.
it's like, people are like, "Oh, just do it." Like, "Oh, you just don't have enough why, or you don't want it bad enough." And I'm like, "No, that's not it."
Yeah.
It's because I'm going to take the time to develop myself in the process, because falling in love with the journey is just as important, if not probably more important, than your destination of where you're trying to go. And I will tell you that I learned so much in those years going to school and having a child and having to figure it out on my own, and babysitting, like, anything, putting food on the table, like, it took work, and it took consistency, and it took planning. And, a lot of people use this word discipline, which I
Mhm.
don't know why, but I feel like, ooh, that's a little harsh for me. Like, I'm disciplined. For
Yeah.
me, it's training. Like,
Yeah.
I'm training myself to become more resilient, to overcome these obstacles. It's all about training. You're training yourself. It doesn't just like happen. Like, I trained myself to be able to do this by acing that one test, by acing that one semester, by acing that one year of classwork. I trained myself that I could do it by showing up for myself, even if it was buckets of tears, sleepless nights, whatever it was. it was in the training process, and I learned to believe in myself through that process when people didn't believe in me.
It's funny because you're saying these things like your why, discipline, everything like that, and I'm fully resonating with all this. And the other thing I realize is too, a lot of people are talking about it on social media because it's become a buzzword.
Mhm.
You know, like whatever it is, like all that, like yeah, cool, but it's horse shit.
Yeah.
Okay, like, what people need to really listen and understand is, for one, there's too many people regurgitating somebody else's content. I
Yep.
can't stand it. I love when I hear the original, right?
Mhm.
The original version of the content, but then someone comes on and says that like literally word for word and doesn't even, subtweet or quote the actual author of what it is they're talking about. But the lesson's very clear.
Mhm.
Just move.
Yeah.
Like literally
Mhm.
do what you said you're going to do.
Yep.
If it is hard, you're going to have great results. If you
Mhm.
just keep moving and not hold yourself back and continue, sorry, my dogs are barking here, is to just move regardless of how you're feeling,
Yeah.
right? It is very important that if you say you're going to ace this course, you're going to ace whatever this is, then you have to keep moving even on the days that you wake up, your eyes are puffy
Mhm.
and you just don't want to move. Walk somebody through that because you had to do that as a teen mom. You had to
Yep.
do that as a mom starting college
Yep.
at 9 months pregnant. You had to do that when your marriage was falling apart. You've had to do that building this podcast. You've had to do this becoming a trauma and an emergency room nurse. There's
Mhm.
some real grit here, and the listeners and the viewers need to understand it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's really simple actually, in my opinion. Um, you get a calendar, and in times when life is so busy, I would literally write like 6 o'clock, take a shower. 6:15, do your makeup.
Hmm.
6:30, like get Sion up for school. Like I literally lived my life by minutes.
Mm,
And that was the only way that I made sure that I got time with my family, my son, who was the most important to me, studied for my tests, and sometimes those hours went into the night.
yeah.
It's just the way it worked. I don't think there's something I don't think it's like, "Oh, this is the key." I think it's simple. It's you have to put it on your calendar. You have for me, like I have to write it down. And a lot of people have everything on their phone. I don't like the phone for my calendar, and I'll tell you
Dude,
why.
same, man.
Yeah. I'll tell you why I don't like it though. And this is why I feel bad for teenagers too. We always have things coming at us, right? And so
Mhm.
if I had to go to my phone to look at my calendar every time that every 15 minutes when I knew I had something else to do, you know, I have 20 things coming at me at one time. So I always use a paper calendar because
Mhm.
nothing's coming at me from that piece of paper. And I say I feel bad for teenagers because you think about the world that teenagers grow up in, and that baby that I had at 18 now is going to be 17 this year, just so everybody's aware. Um, so I feel bad for them because I've watched him struggle, and it's the world we live in today is so fast, right? And so
Mhm.
these kids have like now we're going on a tangent again, but
It's
these kids,
okay. That's what this is. It's
right?
this is hey, free for all on this fucking show, man.
Life without secrets. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so my son, it's like they have things coming at them so much more than any of us ever had growing up, right? Like they have a cell phone, they open their cell phone, it comes at them. Guess what? They go to school, they work on a computer. Guess what? That computer feeds them all this stuff. They go home, they have to do their homework on the computer. And not only do they, instead of having to turn it in the next day in class because it's a piece of paper, don't worry, you can send it by 11:59 tonight. Right? And so they're on their computer and try all this stuff is coming at them. And so for me, I'm like, keep it simple. Like,
Yeah.
get your paper calendar, write down your schedule by minute if you have to. If that's what it takes to stick to it, and go through it, and to make it something where it's not something that can be coming at you. Because if we let it, the world will dictate your life.
Dude, like I'm smiling and I'm not laughing at you.
Yeah.
Like, you know how long it took me to start taking a paper calendar? And it's because my wife told me, like, you would sell more in your career. Now, I was always a top performer,
Mhm.
but I would just like, no, I don't need that. I just got right here. Right. If it was a meeting for me to be somewhere to sell something, I knew exactly where I needed to be at what time. I was gonna be there. I was gonna do my thing. I was gonna roll out with the deal. Right.
Yep.
But there's one specific January in that I'm speaking about specifically is when we just had Mia. And I went back to work after a week. And it's the biggest month of the year because I was in payroll and HR and I had to sell a ton of business. I was just fucking up. I was crying in my car, panic attacks.
Mhm.
And she goes, "You need to come home right now and you need to start writing your schedule down." I'm like, "What in the fuck is that going to do? Like, schedule? Like, I'm fine. I don't need that." She goes, "No, you're going to do much better. You're going to take stress off of yourself. And what you'll see is you'll become more strategic." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Okay, whatever." And it started working. And
Yeah.
so for years, like, I'm writing down on this agenda because my wife suggested it. Then she starts sending me stuff on this damn phone. I'm like, what are these things? Like, what are these invites to events? And I'm like, "I thought we agreed to that paper calendar." She goes, "Well, I moved on to the electronic calendar and it works great." I go, "That thing fucks me up because if I'm looking at something and then a text
Mhm. Yep.
comes through, like, I'm completely forgetting." Do you know, and this is embarrassing, and I'm going to say it,
Go ahead.
you know how many meetings that I've missed or forgot about because they're on my damn phone and not in a fucking paper calendar?
Yeah. I know. I actually have to go through and put from
Yeah.
electronic to paper just to have it all in one place. But I mean, like Calendly and stuff, like booking
Yeah.
podcasts, it's
Well, of
electronic.
course.
Like,
Yeah.
let's be
You
real.
need that.
But I also
Yeah.
put it on my paper calendar, and that's how I mark off that time.
Dude.
Hmm.
Like, that was like a therapy session on organization. It's
It,
just like,
I mean, and my husband has the same issue because his mind, he is total like ADD, right? And so
yeah.
like I'm like, you've got to do that. And then he'll be like, no, you need the electronic calendar because I can't keep you up. And this is something that I will tell like people that are entrepreneurs, and have a spouse. Like, one of the ways that I think is key for your relationship is not just relying on an electronic calendar, because he tried to get me to do that for days, and I'm like, I've watched you give your time and attention to this person, and this person today. You can take 20 minutes and come home and sit down with me and talk about what you want to put on our calendar. You have to keep your lines of communication open,
Mhm.
with entrepreneurs, especially. And I will tell you, it was really hard in our relationship when he went from police work to mortgage and entrepreneurship, because I watched him, like, especially with sales, like, you might be able to relate to this, right? Like, your spouse is watching you give your time and attention, full time and attention, to that person on the other side of that sale. Okay. And she wants to feel like the other person on the other side of your sale. She wants to feel like she's got you captured for that 30 minutes without no interruptions, because you want to win her over.
Mhm.
And so you need to remember that, for any entrepreneurs out there listening, you need to be able to give that time and attention without stopping and going, "Oh, hold on, I need to just, I need to send this text really quick." No. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Treat me
It
like one of your sales then.
this is we're gonna go into this one real quick, and then we're gonna have to land the
We could
plane
we
here.
could talk
But
forever.
yeah, we could. Yeah, seriously, like, sorry guys, this could be like literally a 3-hour podcast
It
if we
could.
wanted it to
It
be. We
really
probably
could.
should at one point. Most downloaded episode, 15-hour episode with Jillian Riddell.
Right?
It's simply this, and we've had this conversation before
Mhm.
because and it was like before or after your show, I believe we spoke about this, and I didn't know
Mhm.
this was a thing, and you were starting to feel very resentful because everybody else was getting the best of your husband and you were getting the
Uh-huh.
scraps and leftovers. I'm like, holy shit, my
Yep.
wife feels the same way. And it took me a while to really understand it. And ultimately, y'all, that's why I took time off. My
Mhm.
wife and my children were getting my leftovers. Like, they were getting the scraps, and they were the most important people to me, but I was giving them nothing.
Yep.
Like, literally, when I say nothing, nothing to what I'm compared, or equipped to give them, right?
Mhm.
And I just I just had to walk away for a little bit because until I could show them that they're the most important people to me and that they were that person on the other side of the camera or they were that person on the other side of the sale, I just couldn't do it anymore.
Mhm.
And I feel like I've gotten much better at it,
Yeah.
and it's not consuming me like it used to. And I mean,
Mhm.
how much this means to me.
Yep.
Like,
Yes, I do.
how much my show and me ascending and becoming really big mean to me because it means I'll impact more people.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, but I have perspective on it now.
Mhm.
And it's funny how that works. So if you're listening, and I'm gonna let Jill get to what the whole how she was feeling in her situation. But if you're listening now, I came back and I started doing my show like what 5 or 6 weeks ago, maybe. I don't
Mhm.
know. And my numbers are down. Yeah, they're down. Um, and I'll look at them. I'm like, it'll initially fire me up, and I'm pissed because I know the shit's good. Like, whatever, like, fine. The people that listen to it, they're gonna get value. The other people, they're gonna come back, right? They're gonna come back. They're gonna see I'm more consistent again. Like, okay, well, he's back on track, and I want to be there.
Mhm.
Um, but man, I got to tell you, I'm not letting it consume me. And yes, I texted you. I'm like, hey, we need to do this. Can we? Because I didn't want to not have a show. The reality is I would have just done a solo cast, but I wanted to interview with you. And it's funny how it works because I have less focus on it now. I have better perspective, and now I'm getting sponsorships. Like we talked
Mhm.
before we started the show, I'm
Yep.
making my first sponsorship deal. This show is now going to be monetized. Just being me now.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to be somebody I'm not. So, for those men and women that are listening right now that think their business is so important that they can put their family on the back burner, what you got for them?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, I just want to commend you because most people will let the world dictate their life, their business, the world around them will start dictating their life, and they won't take that moment to pause and go, is this really what success means to me? And so I think defining like what it looks like to you as an individual and you, like between you and your spouse, is very key. Because if you are achieving, but you're not happy and you're not feeling good about your relationship, which is should be most important in your life because it will dictate your business, your kids' life. It needs to be all aligned. And so, yeah, I think that we have to take pauses in life and really ask ourselves the deeper questions. Is this really what I want? Is this getting me to where I want to go? And just because so and so said that I have to make $1 million to be somebody, is that really what it looks like to me? Or is it
Mm.
or is it so I can just spend more time with my family? And am I doing that? Am I enjoying the journey getting there? And if you're not, take a pause.
Yeah. That
Ask yourself the questions.
Thank you for that because that's a very important point. For me, I want this to turn into something so big, obviously to impact people, but the bigger reason is I want more time with my family.
Mhm.
I
Exactly.
don't, I mean, it is what it is.
Mhm.
But was I being effective? Right? How did I feel?
Yeah.
And so for me, if I would have kept going like I was going, I mean, I'd still have my kids, but I don't know that if my marriage would have made it.
Mhm.
I
Exactly.
mean, we're not perfect. We're still working through stuff.
Mhm.
There's a lot of love there, and
Yep.
we're committed, right?
Yep.
And I have a lot of growth to do. She has a lot of growth to do. But guys, if we just sit there and be still for a little bit, ask yourself, because I was notorious for this. I'm doing this for them. And then I realized, shit, am I?
Mhm.
Ask yourself,
Mhm.
are you really doing it for those that are around you? Now, ultimately, at the root of things, yes, you probably are. Okay. And just think of the pyramid. right? A pyramid has a strong foundation. It's big and it's large. That could be your foundation, your why of why you're doing it for
Mhm.
your family. But then there's a bunch of shit stacked up on top of it.
Yep.
So you better be able to take a pause and stop building what's going on and maybe just backtrack a little bit and fix the foundation.
Yep. Yeah, you can't move on without a solid foundation. Like if there's a crack in your foundation in your home, you're going to be worried about it. Same
Yeah.
thing. And I think it starts from our home. When we have a stable home, we're able to show up at work better. And
Mhm.
studies show like connection is like the root of growth. You know, connection creates, better mental health, like reducing anxiety and depression. Connection makes us work harder in our jobs and makes us see results faster. And connection brings resilience. Like when we feel connected to our spouse at home and we feel that sense of connection, we can show up and we can bounce back when we're faced with adversity. Like connection is so key. And so if you need to find that time to connect with your partner and those that you love in your life, that is like key to being successful to anything else in your life.
100%. I love
Mhm.
it. I've absolutely loved this conversation. Like, I didn't think it would be any less than great, and I wasn't disappointed. So, thank you for providing such amazing value for my audience, but then also just an hour of interrupted time with my friend. It's been great speaking with you, and
Always.
I cannot wait to see what you got going next. Guys, please go on Apple Podcast or Spotify and listen to Life Without Secrets. It's an amazing show. Yes, yours truly was on it. It was probably her least downloaded episode,
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah, right.
but but it's an amazing show full of authenticity and how we should be living life. So, Jillian, thank you so much again, and I will chat with you.
Oh, this was so
You
fun.
got it,
Thanks
my
for having me
friend.
on.